So welcome to the panel. And I'm hoping that all of you have lots of questions. So please do raise your hands and we'll go for the first question. Don't be shy.
What I'd like you to do for a moment is you each got a magazine. So if you could pick up your magazine that you've got, just sort of hold it open at any page, lift it up to your face, take a deep smell, breathe in. That's the smell of freedom, everybody.
I was just wondering what the panel thought if the history of Eastern Europe has been mythologized and there's a nostalgia around it now that maybe, particularly perhaps among young people, the sort of distance between the reality and our perceptions.
I think the transition is about mythology. The transition is seen as a success story of achieving freedom, whereas 25 years ago I was part of the alternative theatre movement in Poland. It was blooming at that time and that was oppositional. And we were very optimistic about liberty. But then came all the problems, the plight of minorities first and foremost, anti-Semitism, homophobia, misogyny. Abortion was criminalized in Poland very quickly after the achieving of freedom. So all these problems really trouble me still now.
I think 1989 has been mythologized because all big historical events are mythologized. That's one thing that defines them, and this was a huge historical event. And someone has to say the obvious thing first, which was it was the most extraordinary, miraculous transformation, and for all the problems that Thomas rightly identified, and we should talk about those. The answer to the question on our exam sheet, which is, are we more free, is if you're Polish or East German or Czech, you are massively more free, politically, economically, socially, culturally, than you were 25 years ago. I mean, I think someone has to put that on the table. And then we can talk about all these problems here.
But I have heard it argued persuasively that there were ways of liberating the East European economies which would not have led to the divisions of wealth, which I think, going on to the second question, are the real threat now, is those massive divisions of wealth and what that has done to the people who've been left behind.
I find that really the most interesting question, because what we see as the new world order is capitalism rampant.
Yes.
And you know, Russia, obviously, let's not blame, there's no point in blaming anybody, but I would, and I'm certainly no admirer of Mr. Putin, but part of what went wrong in Russia in the 90s was that Western capitalists took the country hostage.
I mean, it was that idea, and I mean, from today, I think it was extremely naive idea to believe that we have something like a buffer situation in between capitalism going wild and still a kind of socialism. It was everything that counted in 1989 following was money. I remember on a bridge on the motorway from Berlin to Dresden, there was a kind of graffiti, and it was before the first election, and it said, elect money.
Of course we're going to look back on it as one of the most important, one of the most magnificent events that happened in this past 100 years. I completely agree with everything Tim and Martin have said. But I'd again like to celebrate the obvious. If anyone actually needs reminding how terrible this divide was across Eastern Europe, to go back to my Hungarian family, I mean, we had cousins who one never saw, and then eventually they began to be allowed to take holidays, but they had to leave the rest of the family there, and there was so much stress about possibly trying to get some money, getting money to them. Last weekend, my aunt got on an EasyJet flight to go to a wedding in Serbia of a young cousin who'd come and earned a bit of his own money living in her flat in London. And the family was together again. That is absolutely wonderful.
I'd just like people to raise their hands if they feel that we are more free now than we were in 1989. We are. Thank you very much.